Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am on editing duty for this episode of Technically Together because Issa got really busy this particular weekend. So, as far as recording this episode, it happened just after I woke up from a massive food coma because it was recorded on Thanksgiving night. Obviously, that means something to me, maybe not so much to Issa, and that is a little bit of our early on discussion. And then later on, I go ahead and let Issa just let me have it in terms of this real interesting development that happened in which the non-MacBook user finally gets a MacBook. Let's jump into it. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Issa.
There you go. And I'm JV.
And this is...
And we are technically together.
We are technically together. I'm hyping myself up. It
Okay.
is Friday afternoon from where I am.
It is almost midnight for me. So
Yeah.
hype up might not be quite as possible for me, so I apologize.
I'm just trying to get my energy up. It's been like a stressful couple of days because I'm actually driving out to the province this weekend with my mom. And so I usually have this bad habit of working through the weekends to offset all the stuff I need to do, and I won't be able to do that. And now I'm realizing that it's really hard because I have been panicking the last 2 days trying to get everything done. And so we also have put off this recording, and now it's Friday.
Well,
Welcome.
I usually let. Oh, sorry. Okay, I had to move my chair up a little bit to like get the framing just right here. So I need to make
It
sure
looks nice.
the arm will hit the table, so I got to be careful about that. Anyway, yeah, we had an idea that we would schedule for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so that we could do these recordings. Take your time. Note to self: I can't breathe coffee.
I am a classless person. I'm sorry. That is literally what happens to me if like we meet up in a restaurant and like it's a nice conversation. I'm meeting you for the first time and I drink coffee up my nose or something, and it happens to me. This is stuff that happens to me. So I apologize. Go on.
At least you don't do the thing that I do when I go through one of those coughing fits. I start to sneeze uncontrollably. Like everything above my chest is just trying to get everything out any way it can. So coughing, massive sneezing, and it goes pretty nuts. And it always gets to a point where somebody outside the room is like, "Josh,
what is going on?"
So what was I trying to get at?
Weekend trying to get stuff
we were trying to do the podcast. We had an idea of doing it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday came and went. So, and then you messaged me and we're like, oh, like the thing is we don't forget to do the show. We just forget what day it is. And that's kind of the truth of quarantine.
That's true. Yeah, actually it's been a crazy crunch time for me even. It's because like I am trying to get all these things done before November, but I guess I'm not getting stuff done before
December?
November. No, before November ends.
Oh, okay. You didn't say ends first time.
Sorry, I forget words sometimes. Like my brain is in a mush. I literally have so much to do, and it's
I'm right there with you.
so many things on my mind. Yeah.
I'm right there with you, and I have so many. I have like all of my iPhone content that keeps getting pushed back. It's one of those weird. We've talked about this on the show before. The whole idea that I don't think there's really a perfectionism that's going into this. It's just a matter of, oh yeah, I'm taking my time because I just want to do it right. And it's actually kind of BS. Like we're just pushing it back. We're just procrastinating mostly.
I mean, I totally get the first part though. That was me for a big chunk of this year starting my channel. Like it was a very slow startup up until like now, and I'm still currently learning that I just need to get stuff out. And even then, like for the last few months I've been churning out content, and now I've been trying to get into more of my like video shooting and cinematography, because I am just getting tired of just churning stuff out, and I'm missing like shooting shots and being all like, oh, that's beautiful. So I'm trying to be like more purposeful in the things I make now, but it's tough because I need to get through my backlog so I can be like as purposeful as I want to be. And that's actually why I'm panicking, because I have gotten to the point where I'm like saying no to stuff, and I'm like, I'm gonna do what I want to do. But then that means getting that backlog done so I can do what I want to do. Maybe this year, so I can get back to enjoying what I want to do more.
Yeah,
If
I'm right
that
there with you.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough. And it's almost Christmas. And
Yeah, I think I just have-
have been stuck in my house since March. So I
Yeah,
think I'm
and
allowed to be a little crazy. Right?
I think we are definitely allowed. I mean, here in the US, cases are going absolutely bonkers, and people have had to cancel a lot of plans because of that. But today is Thanksgiving when we're recording this. It's the end of Thanksgiving, I should say. And yeah,
And I was there last Thanksgiving.
yes, we were talking about it, and I remember my folks were talking about it, and I was like, was she here for the actual day of Thanksgiving? And it turns out you were.
Yeah, I was, because like I was supposed to leave earlier, and then something fell. I'm sorry. I am so distracted. I'm sorry. Everyone was like, stay for Thanksgiving, and I did not understand what Thanksgiving was. I just figured, any holiday that entails gratitude would be nice, and it was nice
Yeah, I did.
in that context.
I did what I expect to be my first of many gratitude checks on social media. I just posted it out there. Anytime I don't really have anything to say on social media, I'm just going to say that. Gratitude check, what are you thankful for right now? And then just see what people say. Yeah, Thanksgiving is a nice holiday. It is obviously going to be something very different this year because of what's going on in the world. But yeah, I just see a lot of...
Historically, no, like a lot of holidays. Historically, no, though.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to get to. That there's an irony to Thanksgiving right now because, and I keep seeing social media posts about it, and it's ironic in a sort of like very intellectual way when you think about it. It's just Thanksgiving is basically a holiday that was created out of Native Americans feeding the illegal immigrants who showed up on their shores. And now the U.S. has huge immigration problems, like a fight around immigration, I should say, not immigration problems, just it's a conversation. And then the other thing is that those same illegal immigrants gave the natives smallpox, and now we have a lot of people who are defying just the very basic act of just caring about other people. They would rather get together with their 20 other relatives, half of whom they probably don't even really like, just because it's tradition so they can spread yet another virus.
Yeah.
So that's the we do what we can in our own little like familial bubble to have our own type of Thanksgiving, have a good time, be together with everybody. It is important to sit down, and if we're having a meal, we just take a second to raise all of our glasses. I have an old fashioned right now, and just say, I appreciate you, I appreciate you, I appreciate you. I mean, those are good things. The implications, of course, the historical implications, of course, whole different conversation.
I mean, yeah, when was it when you realized that a bunch of your holidays are just like framed in a colonial mindset where actual natives were murdered and pillaged?
It would be the first example, because it was probably the easiest one, was Columbus Day. Because Columbus Day in my Catholic, I don't know if I ever said this on the show. I went to Catholic school every single year of my schooling was in Catholic school. I mean, to say what you will about that, it's just kind of what happened. And now I'm not even a regular practicing religious I am still Catholic, but I don't practice the actual religion.
It's a funny context when you say that. I am fully aware now that in the US that is a thing, but in the Philippines it's not, because we all are
all or nothing.
We all go to private school. You only go to public school when you can't really afford it, and all the private schools are mostly Catholic schools. And the only time I was in a school that was not Catholic, it was a weird trip, but it was because I went to law school in one of our state universities, and that was the only time. But we went to like all our values, and it's funny because like we are shaped by our Catholic institutions. Which is why I remember there was that trip where a bunch of people went to like the monastery. And I was freaking out about it.
Yeah.
Remember that? And like, who would have thought I would freak out over a monastery?
Well, it's what you. It's like it was part of. I don't. Is it memory?
It was because
It's like in the back of your head because of your upbringing.
It's because I was schooled in a Benedictine school, and Saint Benedict actually went up to that monastery at some point in his life, because to this day his history and his life is etched into my brain.
But yeah, this is gonna be a rough show because I am trying to remember where I was. So when you go off tangent, I have to use a lot of energy to remember.
I'm sorry.
When I have to use so much energy to remember
You
where I
went
was.
to a Catholic school and it was Columbus Day. I don't know what Columbus
Okay, there
Day
you go.
is.
So
TBH.
Columbus Day is basically the day that is supposedly celebrating when Christopher Columbus discovered America. Even though there were already people here. So he was also, and he was an actual illegal immigrant who then claimed the land for his own. Anyway, these are all things that obviously have a certain level of like historical yet somewhat existential angst when we do these things. But Columbus Day was a day off for my middle school, and leading up to it, we would always talk about, why is Columbus Day a day off? Why do we celebrate this? It's like, well, America wouldn't exist the way it is if it wasn't for that kind of.
It would, though. It just wouldn't exist the way it exists right now.
Yeah, so we would talk about that a lot, and that was the first time it became clear to me that the holidays that we have are a little bit contrived, and they're just sort of excuses to celebrate random things. That said, there are certain ones that make a lot of sense. Like, again, it's about, like, there's a certain spirit behind it that you create out of your own life. So in Thanksgiving, it's a day of gratitude. Veterans Day, we know veterans. And things like Labor Day kind of makes a little bit of sense, at least in my mind, because Labor Day usually means that it's the beginning of the next like school year or work year. So it's like, okay, one day off before we lose our minds.
Labor Day is what we call Laborakay. Again, for context, the Philippines is an archipelago, and there's this beautiful beach where we all go. It was uber commercialized, and so we party in Makati or the fort, but then on Labor Day, that long weekend, everyone flies to the beach, and it's like you're in Makati meeting people you meet at the bars, except you guys are on the beach. That is what La Boracay is for us, although they closed down Boracay and now it's like less of a party place but more of a chill place. I have not been since it was closed, but that is what Labor Day is for me. Which is sad because I'm sorry, I'm going off tangent, but like Labor Day should celebrate workers' rights in a third world country where not a lot of them are aware of their rights. Like it's crap, man.
Yeah,
I am in this.
It's funny how the holidays kind of boil down to something ultra simplistic that kind of takes away from the ultimate meaning and history of it all. Like, for example, the reason why I say Labor Day kind of makes sense is because every year throughout my entire schooling, it was always, we start school, this sucks. I mean, cool to see our friends, but we're back to work and blah, blah. And then a few weeks in, all of a sudden we have a 3-day weekend for. It's like it's a weird place to just put it. So we always look forward to something like that. Have a little bit of a break.
I think your Labor Day is different than our Labor Day too, though.
Yeah, I think so. The Thanksgiving, though, the way it boils down to, which is what I have just gone through, is honestly Thanksgiving is kind of an excuse for the family to get together and just stuff our faces for no apparent reason at all.
It's always nice to celebrate the little things, right? Like, just take the excuse to celebrate.
And this year was funny because we did something we almost never do. We actually had the traditional, quote unquote, Thanksgiving feast.
But you don't do turkey.
We did this time. Like my mom, I have been saying for years that I'm like, we could do turkey. I've actually made the turkey for Thanksgiving before.
Your parents.
Yeah, my parents never want to do it, and I always offer because I've done it before. I did it in college using a college dorm room's oven. Like I had to actually tell my roommates, I need you guys to just is someone going to be in here at least, one person in here at all times later tomorrow during the day. I'm like, yeah, I think so. I go to class, but then Emmett should be here, and we're like coordinating, right? I'm like, I just want to make sure someone is in here so that if something happens to the oven and I'm not here, they like you could just turn it off and just make sure it doesn't blow up or anything. And sure enough, I put the turkey in the oven in the morning. Put it on a rather low setting just so I can slow cook it. Sure enough, 8 hours later, it was time for a big get-together with me and the Filipino crew in the college. And turkey was perfect. Everyone was happy that I made it. So I'm like, I can do this. This is not that difficult. And granted, I only made the turkey. I didn't make the rest of the stuff. But this year, my mom was like, you know what, let's just do it. But there are so many places that actually just pre-make the meal. So why don't we just do that? I'm like, okay, cool. So we went to a place nearby she went to a place nearby called Marie Callender's. They make awesome pies and whatnot, but they literally make the entire feast. So one whole turkey that is half cooked, and they tell you, put it in the oven for a few hours. Here are all the sides. This is how you warm it up. Go nuts. So that's what we did. And here's the funny part. You and I were slight foodies, and we know, or at least are familiar with, many cuisines of the world. Half of the dinner was us sort of critiquing the meal. Not that it was bad coming from Marie Callender's, but just thinking to ourselves, why is this the traditional set? And why are these ingredients part of the entire thing? Because you have stuffing, green beans, mashed potatoes, yams, cornbread, gravy, cranberry sauce, turkey. And we're like, so the turkey is a super lean meat. There's not a whole lot of fat in it. It's not, you can easily dry it out. And that was when I came in and I said, actually, you know what? I've heard from a lot of my white friends that's why the cranberry sauce and the gravy are there. Because if the turkey is not like moist, it's a little bit dry, that's when you put the sauces on. So you're trying to cover up for the fact that the food itself is pretty bland.
That sort of feels like a metaphor for something.
A little bit, right?
Okay, I have no idea what a traditional turkey spread is. I totally get with your parents when you say you don't do turkey, because like being Filipino and loving our dark meats, I have never appreciated turkey. I'm like, what is up with turkey? I never got it. So
I think that's why I forgot you were here last year, because we had steak, and if I'm honest, because we know how to make our steaks, because we're good at it.
They're really good. It's very good.
We have steaks fairly often, so it doesn't register to me that you had it with us because of a holiday.
Makes sense. I remember because it was my first Thanksgiving. And I wanted to do the Black Friday. What did I buy? I didn't even buy. Did I buy anything during those sales? Because everyone was like, go shopping. And I'm like, I don't wanna. And then we went shopping online, I think. I could not have bought anything because maybe stuff for my mom or something.
I feel like you got like one
weird
small
stuff.
thing
I
because we were
always
looking
buy
at it.
obscure things.
Yeah.
I may have gotten the hair tie bracelets and like some patio lights or something.
Maybe.
I get weird things.
You would get things that are either weird or strangely practical.
Yeah, but they're really cool though. Like, I mean, so funny story, our Amazon Lazada just opened up a special like profile for some influencers, me included. That's weird to say. But basically we now have like sort of like Instagram profiles on the app itself where we can post about like the stuff we like and like tag it with the links. And I was looking back at the stuff I have bought on Lazada. It's like a number of weird obscure things like rugs and plant pots and like my weird remote cell phone holder, which I showed you guys last time. Oh, what happened? What's going on? Oh no. What's going on? Okay, are you back?
Yep.
Okay, I don't know what happened. But yeah, it's I don't know. I have a weird shopping thing.
Well,
I also am weird with gifts. Like I want to buy people weird stuff. Because in my head, you're never gonna buy anything like in my head, if it's something you need, you're gonna buy it for yourself. But then a gift. Yeah, but in general, everyone.
Oh, in general.
Like in general, everyone, if they need
Definitely
something, they'll buy it for themselves, right? Mm-hmm. But then So if I buy you something that I think you like but don't really need, like that's a treat, right? Like a treat is something you don't need, right?
That's true, and I see exactly where you're coming from with that, and I commend it wholeheartedly. I think the
But
reason
then
why
it turns weird though. Like it takes a weird turn at some point when I do it. Like it just becomes like really weird shit sometimes.
do you have an example?
I don't know, but I feel like I've gotten people weird shit. Like probably my brother. Okay, hey, that's cool.
Well, no,
Weird, but very cool.
that's what I'm saying. Like, it wasn't necessarily something that I needed, though it became a very good aspect of what I do. This Mega Man, I don't know what we would call it, like a light, halo light back here or whatever. But yeah, she found it, and for all intents and purposes, if she did, especially if I wasn't so clear about my love for the characters of Mega Man X in particular.
Which, by the way, there are like a number of types. Like I could never understand. Go on.
Yeah, when you think about it, this is a weird item. But there's also what I said before, which is strangely practical, where it is a practical light in my videos, in my background.
I feel
and
like
also
I've
it's
gotten.
it's decor, and it's something that I like. So
Feel like I've gotten like my siblings weird stuff.
well,
Can't remember.
I know that I'm on the absolute other extreme, where if I see something that I can justify to myself would actually help me in my life, or something that I need, it's bought.
You
Like
buy
it's
it.
just
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just done.
That's why
So-
it's hard to get you a gift.
Yeah. Well, I do. And you're speaking about Black Friday. I even have that. I tweeted about it. It's the yearly tradition of, in the week or two leading up to Black Friday, I'm like, oh, look at this. This is dope. And I'm like, boom, got it. And then 3 days later, Black Friday sales start happening, and the item I just bought goes on sale.
Yeah. Ooh,
I'm such an
maybe I
idiot.
should get like tile trackers so I don't lose things.
I think I saw them already on Amazon.
Are they on sale?
I think so.
I mean, if they are, can you let me know? I don't know which one I like anyway. Whatever.
Well,
I don't. Why am I shopping right now?
I know
I'm shopping in my brain.
It's clearly been a couple of rough days for you, and you're just all over the place. Don't
Yeah.
worry. Last half of the show, you will have a lot to say. But before I get to that,
What?
I do want to say we usually have, as Issa would say, when she's with me and my family, she eats well, like really well.
Yeah.
We're very good at our feastings here. I wanted to do something kind of offbeat for the Thanksgiving dinner today. I'm in this mode where clearly, like, Issa and I haven't seen each other in 10 months. We've been stuck at home for 8 months, and there are so many places and things that I usually have in during travels that I just can't have. So I've actually been looking for some of those things, and if I can actually get it in some sort of way, I want to try getting it one time. This is a good example right here. These are the super thick and gooey Levain bakery cookies. Camera's on face detect, so it won't. Here, maybe I'll do that. There you go.
Maybe put it. Oh.
I covered my face. So this is the chocolate chip almond, or walnut. Sorry, chocolate chip walnut. These are literally. Do you remember that cookie we had in? Was it Greenbelt?
Yeah.
It's even better than that, because I remember those cookies were good, but it's even better than that. These are famous cookies, and I want to tell a couple of stories about them because I've been saying them recently to explain why I love these cookies. 5 years ago, when I went through my last like long-term relationship breakup, I took a sabbatical from Android Authority. I was very unhappy in general, so I was like, probably not a good idea for me to be working every single day for the holiday season, because that was what came up. So I said, I'm taking a sabbatical, which to me meant time off without pay. So that way you can't like pressure me to work at all. Like, I am going to take a break because I need it. And I retreated to New York to stay with my best friend in Manhattan. It was December. New York City is unbearably cold in December. And on this particular day, I hung out with him and our old friend from college, Dami Lee, who is a contributor. I'm trying to remember. I haven't really followed The Verge closely lately, but she has been, and I think probably is still, one of the main contributors to The Verge.
Egg comment.
Comics.
Cartoons.
Yeah, she makes really fun.
What did I say? Oh my gosh, what is wrong with me today? Go on.
She makes really awesome comics called As Per Usual, and they're super cute. And I even gave Issa the one piece of merch that I bought from her, which is a long sleeve pink shirt with a fried egg on the chest.
I shot a video quick tangent. I shot a video of a phone the other day. I think it was my iPhone. I can't remember which phone it was. Whatever. And I was just like holding the phone up, and then some person was like, "Ooh, there's a flower on your nail." And like I was like, "No, that is literally a fried egg and a hot dog on my nail."
Oh, on your nail.
Yeah, I was like, yeah. Now that I say it out loud, it's a little weird that I nail arted an egg on my nail, but
well, the character that Dami portrays herself as in the comic always has a pink sweater on with a fried egg on the chest, which is hilarious. And I wore it one time for a CES, but no one recognized it. And even worse, I wasn't even able to meet up with Dami during that CES, which I was disappointed about. By the way, I don't even think Dami would ever listen to the show, but if you are, miss you. We hung out during that like couple weeks that I was in New York, and at one point they were like, "We got to get these cookies." And it was in the upper west side, I think, upper west side of New York. And these cookies, they only had one location. It's a tiny location. And they were just churning out these cookies fresh, hot out the oven, super gooey, super delicious. But the place is so small that the line is over 2 hours long. We waited in the snow at night for 2 hours just to get these cookies. That's how good they are. Now, they were worth it, I will say. They were worth it, especially for the first time. That's the time you do it, is for the first time. And then now, years later, Levain is like opening other locations and it's getting better. One more story regarding these cookies. There was a Samsung event. I want to say it was Samsung Galaxy Note 9 or 8. It's either. Where we went to the venue, and this was one of those events where Samsung had a lot of money to blow, apparently, because there were goodie bags for literally every single attendee. And this was in New York City. Inside of that bag was not only a shirt and a few other pieces of swag, but there was a tiny box. You open up the box, and when you open it up, there are these 2 huge gooey cookies in there. And then there's a card on the bottom that says, "We hope you enjoy these from Samsung and Levain Bakery." 4 of these cookies cost $30. So to have 2 cookies in every bag for like 5,000 attendees.
$30?
Yeah, 4 of these cookies is $30. Like these are high price cookies, and they're that good. But to have 2 in every bag for over 2,000 attendees at that Unpacked, that still blows my mind when I think about it. That's how much money Samsung had to blow that year.
I can't get over $30 cookies.
They're amazing.
That you have to fall in line for.
Everyone here, well, we bought one, so it was more like $7. But here, everyone was just like, damn, these are crazy good. So, yeah, like I'm on this sort of little quest to find all the cool things in, I guess, only in the US that I can find that I would enjoy during my travels, but I can't. So if they can bring it here, that'd be great. So this is one of the first ones.
See, when I say that my ears are irregularly shaped, that is literally what happened.
So yeah, those are my stories on just these little cookies. And yes, I'm diabetic. Leave me alone. These are amazing.
On the other hand, like my brother's been making everything from fresh noodles,
pasta,
to his own cookies, which are great and not $30. And calamansi squares, which are even better than lemon squares.
Mm-hmm.
Except now he's spending the whole day, like, what do you call that in English? Like squeezing out tiny little calamansi. Mm-hmm. So it's been a trip, but they're really good. And
I really want to try it. Maybe he can send me, or you can send me the recipe, and I'd love to try it because our calamansi.
it's in his head.
Fair. Our calamansi tree in the backyard has been sprouting. Like it is a centerpiece of every video now because it's beautiful.
So what we do is we actually squeeze them all out, make it into a concentrate, freeze the concentrate so that if you put it in a glass of water and add some honey, it's calamansi juice. Or you can put it in a cocktail.
Yeah, I made well, so I know how to make a keto whiskey sour, and I tried to replace them.
Oh, wonderful! What was that drink you were making me? I like that. The one you kept making me.
I don't know. I don't remember right now.
Oh my god! I'm in such a whiny mood. I've been wanting to throw a tantrum for 3 days, like. My emotional capacity is at like 150%. And like any chance I get, I'm whiny. I'm like,
Let it be known that when she told me what she was going through before the show, I was like, "Are you sure you're up for this?" But
no, this is like adult.
I'm more than capable of carrying a show. It's okay. I'm experienced.
I mean, babe, more. You know how like. As an adult, you're expected to like carry on like rationally, and like on a lot of days, I dare say on most days of my life, I think I'm able to handle that. But like particularly, there are some days, the last few months, where I literally wanna sit on the ground, start kicking, start crying, and throw a tantrum. Like I think I need to exercise or something,
or just find a way to let it out. But the thing is, I mean, without getting into any details, there are some very extenuating and extraordinary circumstances going on right now, which, like, we're not going to get into any of the details, but it has been kind of rough. So it's completely understandable. I'm just pointing out that I did a temperature check at the beginning of the show.
No, it's just amazing to me how I was completely okay listening to Cookie stories and then found an opening and then indubitably, indubitably is a word, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, indubitably wanted to throw a tantrum.
I'm sorry, I'm so boring.
Oh my God. No, I think I'm going crazy. Like my emotions are like, I have a tendency to like switch emotions, this. And like I think it's just very exaggerated right now.
Mm-hmm. So. Well, I had hoped that, I hope rather that the next thing I kind of wanted to bring up might get your mind off of it because you might have a lot of things to say.
What?
All right.
What?
Start rev your engines up and start telling me all the things you want to tell me because finally it happened.
First of all, I really think I understand, babe, that you edit on DaVinci Resolve and you made a lot of changes for you to be editing on DaVinci Resolve.
Yes.
But it doesn't make sense that you don't try Final Cut if you have a MacBook. If you're all about the most optimized workflow, the only thing that was stopping you from doing Final Cut was the fact that you don't have a MacBook. And now that you have a MacBook, I think you should at least try it. I'm not saying switch, I'm saying try it.
Maybe I will, but honestly, like, the reason why... Okay, so before we even get into this particular development, the actual product of the Apple M1 powered MacBook Pro, and have a lot of explanation as to why this even happened. But
and for context,
this is where I wanted you to go. Like, tell your story of your side being the Mac person and me like rifling through dozens of PCs in your face.
For context, we have had this conversation a lot of times. Like I am a firm believer in Final Cut in MacBooks. Like I will not work on anything else, mostly because I can't and mostly because I don't have the capacity to relearn something else. I do not spend a lot of money. Joshua knows this. I don't buy a lot of stuff. But I had no trouble dropping money on a MacBook when I broke mine. That was like a given. In my brain, having a MacBook is a given for my workflow, for the stuff I do. And we've had countless conversations on pros and cons of working on a PC for Joshua and working on a MacBook for mine. We've even had a little mini argument on using a mouse. Because I was like, I don't need no mouse. I can drag and drop.
Yeah.
Which Joshua didn't have.
And I will admit to my ignorance at the time, because when I've in Issa's case at the time that we had that heated discussion, at that time Issa was getting into what we do for a living now.
Yeah.
I have more than half a decade under my belt of slogging and working and using every tool I can and learning the ins and outs of every tool I can and just losing sleep trying to use these things and all that. So I have a certain like optimized workflow. And for this person who just admitted she was very whiny, she was saying, I need to do
I was like, nah.
I need to do X, Y, Z, and I want to do A through Z. I want to do the whole alphabet, and I'm trying to present my workflow to her and say, this is how I did it. You don't necessarily have to do it my way, but I have perfected my flow, and it might help you. And then when the concept of a mouse came into play, and she was just so, it was like her putting her foot down so hard it went through the floor of my car.
No.
Like, it became this whole thing. And I will admit that it wasn't until I spent some extended time with like Danny Wingett, one of our homies, and he's a big Final Cut guy and whatnot. From the creative side, he agrees that PCs are also pretty dope for like other things, but he edits on a MacBook. He was telling me like, no, Issa's right. There are all of these shortcuts. Let me show you. And he started walking me through every shortcut he uses for Final Cut Pro. And I was like, that still feels uncomfortable to me. But if you can make that your own, the way that I have made the mouse my own, the way that I set my shit up, I get it. So there you go. I just had no knowledge at all of what. Oh yeah, exactly. I had no knowledge at all of how those things integrate.
And I think it's also like another thing that comes into play is that for a lot of people, it's optimized workflow. So if you can edit with a large monitor, that's great. But for me, that's not how I work. For me, it's the more compact my workstation is, the better I like it. I don't think like if that's like, I don't know. I don't even get desk setups. I don't ever want a desk setup. I mean, okay, I don't want to say never, but my point is it's not something that's attractive to me. Because to me, the best setup is one that fits my laptop. Like the most compact it can be, that's what I want.
I think people like me, we like to have our space, you know?
Yeah.
Like once I sit in this chair, it is podcast time. It is editing time. It is working time, you know? So it puts you in the headspace. I will say this though, before and this is only, I'm trying not to like jump the gun here because we have sort of like a chronological way of going through this story. I will admit,
let me just say, in your defense though, at that time, I was such a MacBook lover, I didn't even recognize how much more expensive it was than a PC. So that was a conversation. Like, I was a hardcore MacBook user, he was set in his ways as a PC user, and I couldn't even understand, like, why someone would opt for a PC. And, like, there were all these different nuances that we had to talk about, like, this was not a conversation that happened in one day. This was a span of months.
Yeah.
Okay. So we kept on going back to.
Can I just say that the phrasing of set in your ways is so funny to use because the way that I view Apple users, and it's one of those things where I don't feel this way about you. You have never quite been this bad. Sometimes you dislike a brand because of the fandom. And granted, I worked at a website literally called Android Authority, but what really irked me over the years was that if I even said that I wasn't really into an Apple product, for some reason, some Apple fan would take that as an offense and would start to lecture me or say, oh, well, you're not an Apple person. Or the worst version of it today is if a green bubble appears in your iMessage and you get mad at that,
yeah, like, that's weird.
Fix your life. Fix your life.
I think it goes both ways, because you having worked at an Android place and having used like a PC.
Oh, sorry.
And
Real
having
quick,
made that
I
argument.
just one sentence I forgot to say in that portion. Even though I worked at an Android website, I had never, ever, ever said that I hated Apple.
Yeah, that's weird.
I need to clarify.
I don't think, yeah. So, but like, I think it goes both ways, because from my end, it's like I've gotten a lot of people who are into Android who are like, you just don't know shit. This is why you like Apple, or you don't know your tech. You're an Apple fan. You're not a true techie. And I'm like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
Like, you can be a fan of whatever the fuck you want to be a fan of. And it's like, I resent that, because first of all, if your argument is you don't know anything about tech, you just like Apple because it's easy, I'm like, that makes the argument for you. You already said it was easy. Why are we against easy?
Yeah.
Like that argument doesn't make sense. Like, if you tell me that you are for Android because of customization, I get that, or like choice, or all that other stuff.
That was the part.
But if you tell me that you're against Apple because you want things easy, that doesn't make sense to me. There should be no fault in wanting things easy. That's the whole point of technology.
Yeah.
Like,
and
it doesn't have to be complicated. Stop it. You're probably the same person who gatekeeps tech. Anyway, sorry. Go on.
From my side of the perspective, the reason why I call back the phrasing of set in your ways is like, I would actually argue no, I'm not, because yeah, I like PC and there's some key reasons why, but I'm not really set in my ways because there are multiple ways and avenues available to me. Meanwhile, an Apple person who let's say is trying to move past the ecosystem and maybe try something else, it's really hard. You're not necessarily, you can be set in your ways, but sometimes when it comes to Apple, you can be stuck in your ways because you are at the mercy of what the company provides. So the only thing is, when it comes to PC, I will admit this, one of the main reasons why I always gravitated toward PC is, number one, the video editor of choice that I had seemed to work better on especially NVIDIA powered PCs. On top of that, I am a gamer of sorts, so I do enjoy my PC gaming and all of that. And the thing is, and we'll get into more detail, I don't want to interrupt you too far. The thing is, Apple, with these new M1 Macs, have started to address most of those things. Yeah. And I'll get more into that explanation after you go ahead.
I think the title of this podcast is going to be like MacBook versus PC, so we can clickbait people.
Maybe.
Okay, anyway, what was I gonna say? I think for me, it's like, I was never really, how do I explain this? My dad has always said that I was the most interested in technology, but I was never like techie in a way that traditional techies are. Like, I liked phones, I liked all these gadgets, I thought they were always fun, but I was never like get into the nitty-gritty tech stuff, I always just really enjoyed technology and trying to see what they can do. And so like for me being an Apple user, it was just because I wasn't into the nitty-gritty tech stuff, and it gave me the most intuitive tools. Like, before owning my very first Mac, I knew not how to edit audio or video, or I literally edited a documentary for school. Like, we shot it. That was the easiest part. The hard part was the editing. I didn't know how to edit. I edited that from scratch and passed it. And like, that documentary years later was to be picked up by like GMA News and showed on TV because like we were the only ones who did it and stuff like that. So it's like, from someone who didn't know anything about the creative side, I like Macs because it was a tool that helped me learn intuitively without having to like get into the nitty-gritty of it, I recognize now that other tools have become more intuitive and that it does not exist in a vacuum. But as for my personal preference, it's because it's what I learned from and what I've mastered throughout the years. So I never really knew anything outside of it. I mean, I was a PC user once upon a time, but it's like, I never really enjoyed it at that time. Like, I enjoyed using my MacBooks, and since I'm on this path, like, it's just like smooth sailing up until then. But yeah, again, I didn't even know how expensive it was compared to others. But at the same time, it's also all that talk about rendering, which I never had to worry about, and all that talk about, all these other things that me, as the type of creator I am, not, I mean, you know me, like sometimes I know how to do things, but I don't know what they are. Does that make sense?
Fair.
Like, I don't know the details, but I know what I'm, does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
I know how to do some things, but technically, if I have to explain them, I don't know what they are. Like, I just do things as opposed to like trying to tinker with other things,
Yeah. It's only once troubleshooting is required that you have to start to learn the details.
And I am thankful that you understand me when I start babbling about random weird things that I can't even begin to explain, and you have to understand. And I'm thankful for that.
I have to use to use a weird Mac pun right now. I have to use Rosetta to translate what you're trying to say to me.
Yes.
That's a super nerdy pun right now.
I can't believe I understood that as well. But I guess, like, for me, being that type of user, it helps me. Like, it just made sense to me.
Then that
like,
makes sense. Like, there are a couple of areas that I want to cover real quick from my end. First off, your college story about making a video actually resonates with me because I've never said this before. While I used multiple types of video editors throughout the years, I was even on Linux for a while, and they had one called Kino that I used. It was shit, but I used it. I slogged through that thing to like kind of try to make videos. I'm gonna rant at the end of this particular part. The very first videos that I ever made from college onward were iMovie.
Yeah.
We had a big iMac, or what did they call it? It's iMac, right? The big metal, the big metal one.
One.
Okay, I don't remember if it was iMac or Mac Pro. I don't even remember. It wasn't Pro. Anyway, it must have been iMac. I used to use iMovie on those to create small adverts for the student tech support that I worked at. So that was sort of like how I got my start into like editing and stuff like that, but I never owned a Mac, so I couldn't have iMovie on my PCs or anything like that, so I had to find other tools. What I find so funny, and this just came to mind while you were talking, iMovie was sort of becoming a thing. YouTube, when I was in college, was sort of becoming a thing. And then in my senior year, a whole new generation of kids came in as freshmen at my college. And when it came time for them to do the same videos I made when I was a freshman, they already knew all this shit. I had to learn it in its infancies. And I was actually kind of low-key jealous of them that they could make great videos when I had to work so hard.
Babe, no, I think like, and I don't think people talk about it, but it's because, so our generation, we've become the last of the people who could grow up and never know how to edit. That was our generation. That's the difference. When I was in college and we had film class, and I'm not shitting you, it's not like any light film class. Like, my course in one of my colleges was communications and media studies, and we were taught by film greats. Like, these are the people who actually come up with films and join Philippine cinema stuff. Like, these are the greats in cinema. And I had a couple of classes, and like, for our film class, we had to shoot with a digicam, and it would shoot in a mini DV. And I had to find a way to encode that so that I could digitize the footage, edit that in our editing room. And it sucked because I was in a nice college, but it had a more expensive art school counterpart, and they came up with a new building all decked out with Macs. But we were like the higher ranked college. They were the more expensive ones, but all the Macs. Like, it was like, and so now it's one of the premier art design schools because of all that, because they had all the equipment. We had like one green room and like 5 computers to edit on. So I was like, but like, that was us. Like, I had to run around and find a mini DV encoding thing. But then the generations that came after us a little bit, they were the ones who grew up with like Macs lying around in the house. And like, to be perfectly honest, how easy is it to edit on iMovie? Like, I went on that and knew the very first time I opened that. So it's like, it is like I am a little bit jealous, but it also informs you of how technology can shape your reality, like without even thinking about it.
And
Like
also how
all
far,
these, yeah,
and also how far it's come. Because
yeah,
we have,
definitely.
and this is where I'm coming from. This is how I wanted to segue into the ultimate reasons why I actually got this MacBook. The main reason is everyone was talking about this shit online, like the M1 apparently with Apple's new silicon and all of that. Like they are making their own chips, and because of that, they don't have to necessarily hike up the price of the Intel-based MacBooks because they have to buy those chips from Intel, and if they're going to make a profit on them, they might end up inflating the cost of their MacBooks to meet the cost of all the components that they get from other sources. That's a little bit of speculation, but I think there's some merit behind that. But ultimately, yes, they make their own silicon and they optimize it so much the way that you would optimize an iPhone or an iPad for the iOS software or iPad OS software. Same thing going on here. So I always understood that that was important, that would change things. It would be a paradigm shift. I get that. I was screaming at the TV when the announcement was happening because for the first time ever, I was seeing my video editor of choice being showcased on a MacBook natively. Like, I wasn't going to move over to Final Cut and completely uproot every system that I've created for myself using Adobe Creative Suite. I finally had to because Premiere is a buggy mess. But just video editing. I still use Photoshop. I still use Acrobat. I still use Audition. Even right now for the podcast, I use Audition. So there are still Adobe apps that I can't get away from. But DaVinci Resolve was a revelation. It was great. It crashed far less and whatnot. And here is Blackmagic Design, the makers of DaVinci Resolve, saying, yeah, we have been rebuilding our video editor, a version for the Mac Silicon from the ground up, so it is completely optimized for, it is almost as if it was made for M1. I was like, no, don't do this to me. Don't do this to me, please.
You know what's interesting though? Like, for a lot of like praise that the M1 Apple laptops are getting, it's not appealing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's seeming to me like there are still kinks that need to be worked out.
Oh, for sure.
I don't have the patience. Remember, I'm on a Mac for a reason. I don't want the kinks.
The majority of the apps that you use are already built for M1. And the experiences that you have on that MacBook that you're already using, which is Intel-based, will translate perfectly. Like, you won't run into any hiccups because they're already made for the M1. Your Final Cut, you already use my Adobe Suite, and I have used Lightroom on here and Audition on here. No problems. Like, they actually work well in Rosetta. And there are a couple of key things here that I want to point out. Back in the day, college, onward up until around the time that Issa and I got together and we started having these conversations about MacBook versus PC, the argument of PCs are cheaper to make, or not cheaper to make, cheaper to buy, and that fits better for somebody like me, who, again, there's the other side of me as a gamer that had to be appeased at the time. For the price, so here's another detail that I should put out there. Every laptop we're talking about from these eras were all based on Intel. Okay, that's very important to remember. For an Intel-based laptop to have certain specifications, when you wrap that up in a PC, an MSI, or anything like an MSI, a Dell, an HP, or anything like that, let's say a good spec for me would be around 1500. That same spec wrapped in a metallic MacBook body would be at least 2000. I just couldn't justify it whatsoever.
Yeah, but
now,
like, again, you could edit on a Core i5 easy.
It's usually the video card. See, in a way, yes, but still the i7 and i9 still perform much better in general for that. And they are much more compatible with the higher end graphics cards that I use for my video editing and for my gaming.
I've been editing on an i5 ever. Like, even this new one is on an i5.
Well, this doesn't take into account how Mac OS is like catered to certain specs. But even more so than before. Back to the...
Where is it? Seriously. Go on.
But back to my original thought of technologies like it's pushing forward in ways that benefit us way more than it ever has. I think the level of return that we are getting from our tech right now compared to before is massive. Now with Apple M1, the same spec that you could get this performance on with an Intel-based MacBook, Jaime is the one who said this, and I agree with him now that I've used it. This is a $1,400 laptop. Normally, for the level of performance that I'm enjoying now on DaVinci Resolve, I would have to pay upwards of $2,500 for a current MacBook Pro Intel-based. And it's insane to me because Apple has just proven that even with lower on-paper specs tied to the M1, they're able to push good performance. And it's insane, honestly. And I wouldn't be saying this if DaVinci Resolve wasn't on here, because it means that I can easily move myself to a different platform.
Yeah, I mean, that's with DaVinci Resolve. But, like, isn't it that for the longest time with programs optimized for Mac, like Final Cut, it has been able to push performance higher with lower specs on paper. That was our whole conversation.
Yeah, on Mac
like,
OS.
Even with my lowered spec laptops, I could still get X performance because it's been optimized for lower specs. That you need higher spec PCs to run a certain way because it's not as optimized as Mac OS to Final Cut.
Yeah, no, that is true. If you're using Mac apps, it just wasn't my reality.
So in a way, what they did was they did the Mac thing except to non-Mac apps.
Yeah.
Which is why now you are more attracted to the situation.
And here's the thing too, you would still benefit if you made the move. And I told you, like, wait for whatever comes next, because you just got your MacBook now. The thing is, I don't know what kind of battery life you get on it, but I've plugged this thing in once since I got it. And this includes editing. This includes massive amounts of YouTube. This includes Photoshop and whatnot. That's the part that honestly blows me away because of how efficient the M1 is, on top of the fact that there are apps that I need that are optimized for it, I'm actually able to I could probably get through 3 complete edits in my style and finally drain the battery. That's significant. It's like a 10-hour battery for video editing. That's unheard of.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is though, like, I have so much complete and utter trust for MacBooks that I don't, like, I got this, it didn't hurt me because I'm going to use this for the next 10 years. Because, again, when you met me, I was editing on a 2009 MacBook.
I want to point out.
Which still works.
It still works. Your definition of it still works was different than mine because you were having trouble editing quickly on that machine because it was so old. Like the Final Cut would sometimes crash, the render would take forever, and those are the metrics that I look at. So I wasn't discrediting that the MacBook wasn't working anymore. It's just what we have right now can help you way more.
I mean, I'm sure, but my point is, I could get new PCs and have those very same problems I was having with a 2009 Mac that was still working fine for normal word processing, everyday shit use. You know what I mean? Like, this Mac is literally what now my dad's secretary is using for his law office. So, like, it's unreal to me how well that thing aged. Because even then, I knew I was, like, video editing on it, but even then, the specs for that Mac wasn't for video editing. But I still could, is my point.
Yeah, no, I get that. And yeah, but I just remember
I don't disagree with you.
I just remember those times when, again, and we said this a couple episodes ago, there are times when you are in the middle of your workflow, things aren't working quite the way you want to, and you scream so loud that I think you're pissed at me, and that I think you're so mad that I'm about to feel the wrath. And that is not what I wanted for you.
I don't disagree with you when you said that I needed to upgrade.
Yeah.
Like, I did it. I do not. Like, I thank you for it. My life is so much easier. My life is so
There,
much
see, that's
better.
what
I am
that's
so much more efficient.
Exactly.
I didn't disagree with you on that. I don't, and I didn't. What I meant was, like, it's still amazing what it could do.
I agree. There are a
You know
lot of
what I
people
mean?
who still have devices from way back when, and obviously my needs adapt to what level of tech we have now, which is, I think,
Yeah.
the main takeaway, because I don't need a MacBook, but I tried it out because I was curious about it. And now, because Apple have moved the goalpost of what can make a good work level laptop, yeah, I used to think, Jaime was the one who said it again. He spec'd out a MacBook 16 that turned out to be $3,000. And now he can get even 85% of that kind of enjoyment / performance out of a $1,400 MacBook. That's a big deal. The one thing that I always said I did not like about MacBooks, quote unquote overpriced, has suddenly been addressed.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is
Yeah,
the
I
reason
remember
why
that.
I'm actually like, huh.
Oh my gosh, wait, I just realized something. You know how you were, like, before this MacBook, like, you're like, I can get them, but I don't want to because they're overpriced.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I know, that's how I think about things like that cookie.
Yeah.
You
true.
know this about me. You are willing to spend money on good food and stay in line for good food. I am less patient.
Though,
And I'm like, I'm never gonna buy
please-
that. I'm never gonna fall in line.
Though, please admit that if you once it hits your taste buds, it is good. Like, I've never
is good, but
I've
I
never
still
had you
wouldn't
wait for
do
something
it.
shitty.
No, I'm not saying it's shitty. I'm saying I just wouldn't do it. Personally, I wouldn't do it. Like, I no, the way that you personally would not get a Mac before the M3, mostly
M1.
because you feel like it's mostly
Not
because it's
not the
overpriced.
not the Poco M3.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. It's so many things. But yes, but my point is, like, it just depends on, like, what you perceived are your priorities. And, like, for example, you, for some reason, conceded that, yes, MacBooks are optimized, but I still wouldn't spend that much money to get a MacBook.
Mm-hmm. Because I have
At the same-
I have the exact same experience on a laptop that is at least $500 less. And
Yeah, and-
now
and,
they
like,
are
it
the
doesn't-
same price.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's
Yeah,
what the
but
hell.
my point is, like, it doesn't mean it's not good. It just means you're unwilling to do it.
Oh,
The
yeah,
same
no,
way
yeah.
that. Yeah, no. I'm just trying to, like, put it into context for people who don't get it, because sometimes it's hard to understand these
yeah.
statements when
I'm
you
right,
don't
I'm
feel
right there
it.
with
Like,
you. I'm right there with you. You're not saying that I said that. I'm also agreeing with you on behalf of trying to tell the audience. Like,
Yeah.
to clarify, audience, I never said MacBooks were ever bad.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And to my point, this is me with your cookie. I'm not saying your cookie is bad. I'm just saying I'm not ever lining up for 2 hours in the snow, nor paying $30 for 4 cookies, even if I don't have to wait in the snow.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's not good. Doesn't mean it's not world class. Doesn't mean if Joshua has to fall in line and I have to go, because I'm not leaving this dude. It doesn't mean I won't enjoy it when I use it, when I eat it.
That's the line, which is
I'm just saying, if I had to do it by myself, the answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
If we're already there, sure.
it's
But, like,
it's the empirical. Yes, I'm sure it's worth it. I just wouldn't do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I think, like, that has to be pointed out, because I don't know, man. Everyone's just, like, fighting each other these days. And I'm getting so tired of all the negativity. And it's like, first of all, it's tech. It's stuff that's supposed to make our lives easier. It's supposed to give us choice. So why are we arguing over perceived ease and perceived choices?
And if you're out
Right?
there saying, I don't trust you, Josh, about a cookie that you have to wait 2 hours in the snow for, motherfucker, I am diabetic. I am an expert when it comes to sweets. How do you think I got diabetes?
Like, but see, like,
It's one of my dumb running jokes whenever someone's like, "Are you sure about that, Josh? You really want us to try that?" I'm like, "Bitch."
Well, again, still not doing it if I had to do it myself.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the
I had
point,
good
though.
company in mind.
It's to each his own, man. Eat the cookie. Don't eat the cookie. Wait in line for someone with the cookie. Don't. Fuck. Just do whatever the fuck you want and live with it and stop hating on others. Freaking metaphor for everything else in life, man.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Trying to think if there were any last points. Oh, here's another thing. I have said on a few occasions already in the last half hour of the MacBook talk, the reason why I did not go to MacBooks also is because I liked gaming on my PC, especially in college and shortly thereafter. There are times when, even during shows, and I know that my colleagues at Enter Authority in particular would hate me when I do this, but when there's a little bit of downtime, I throw a game on, man. Like everyone else is working, I'm just like, I'm done.
I don't know how you do that, but sure.
It's just something to enjoy, and like, also, like, I'm also a gamer in the sense that there's a game that I want to play, and it's like finishing a movie, a very long movie. So,
a very, very long movie.
Very, very long movies. That was one of the main reasons why. And again, on the topic of tech is advancing in a way that is very significant. On a Mac, I could probably stream a lot of games from certain services that I would want. Game streaming is becoming a thing. But even then, that's one area. The other area, which is probably more significant, is I have returned to console gaming. I have the PS5 and the Xbox now. So my gaming has shifted away from on a computer back to a console. And now we have a huge TV in the house for me to enjoy that. I am back to the console gaming life. So if I were to remove the PC gamer in me, for a more affordable yet comparably performing MacBook that is made for work, well, there it is. Justified. It is a good work laptop that happens to work with all the things that I need it to work for. And if I need to game, I'll just go to the living room.
Because you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, And on the note of going to the living room for the gaming, I have to say, there's only one laptop in the PC world that I have actually enjoyed this aspect on, and it's the G14, the Asus G14.
Yeah,
it's really nice to have a laptop that I could just, and you do this all the time, it's really nice to just have a laptop that I can just have on my lap anywhere I am.
Yeah, that is like literally one of my main things with work stuff. Again, don't want the desk, just want something I can work with on anywhere.
Well, if I'm like video editing, or if I'm in it for the long haul, this large screen that I have here it's honestly very comfortable. But if I'm like script writing, answering emails, doing casual things, it is good to just like go to the couch and just, I typed up a 1,200 word script earlier, while my brother was playing. Typically mine are around, an 8-minute video is around 1,500 words. But I was typing it up while my brother was playing on the Xbox. And totally different conversation, but I love how Judy, his wife, was like, well, look at you guys spending time together. And I kind of chuckled because I was like, we're doing two completely separate things. But you know what? This is how guys spend time together. Because a comedian once said, when you get longer into your relationship, ladies, you need to understand that men have a certain way of being that is not a knock on you whatsoever. You see, men want to be left alone, but they don't want to be the only ones in the room.
Okay, that's funny because I watched this movie the other night. 5-Year Engagement. My mom wanted to watch something
great movie.
light.
That's a great movie.
It was so funny when they fought, and he was like, I just want to be alone. So the girl starts leaving, and he's like, where are you going? And she was like, you said you want to be alone. And then he goes like, yeah, I want to be alone. But can you please be in the room?
But can you just be here with me? Yeah.
She just sits down on the bed, and he's like, can you at least lie down like a sane person? She's like,
but you know what?
Then she was like, she says something though, and then he goes like, I'm trying to be alone.
Honestly, kind of true, because like, especially and you and I have done this already in my office. We have our own things that we're focusing on, but we're around each other. Like, that's still significant. So we don't want to necessarily interrupt the other person's flow, and it helps that we do very similar work. So the presence is what is significant in those situations. You and I have gone through that already anyway. But it's just funny because my brother was concentrating on Xbox. I'm like typing a script, and it was like, Chewie was just like, hey, brothers spending time together. We're like, kinda. It was awesome though. It was a good time. My brother's been really enjoying the Xbox. It's nice to see my brother gaming because it's not been a part of our lives in this capacity for a long time. So it's a good time.
Meantime, we found like a PS something in our shoe drawer. I don't know, man. Obviously, it's not a very important aspect of our lives. So like me and my sister were cleaning out the shoe area and there was a bag and it was like the PS something. It's not the Xbox. The Xbox is white, right?
Not necessarily.
Not that. Whatever, the square thing. We played things on. We played Rock Band on. Was a thing we played Rock Band on.
What color is it?
Black.
Is it
blue?
Is it a rectangle?
It's a rectangle with weird tiny rectangle. It's not an Xbox. The Xbox is white. And then someone broke that and then I was just like, can you please hide this because it's like ugly.
Is it like really, how big is it? Is it thin? Is it really thin?
Like this.
How thin?
Like this, and then like this, and then like that.
It's probably a PS2.
Yeah, so yeah, that, it was in our shoe drawer under a bunch of shoes. And I was like, what is this doing here? Someone keep this or throw this away. Then Anton sees it and I'm like, hey, I've been looking for that. Gaming in this family.
Yeah.
The only game we ever played seriously was Warcraft. Way back.
I feel like you and I would have the same situation that I just talked about, where I'd be playing a game and you're on your computer next to me doing something.
What? With my AirPods dropping, yes.
I think with that, third time is the charm. So now that your AirPods have fallen out 3 times on the show, it's probably a good idea for us to call it. Isa and I are technically together, and we want to thank you for listening to this episode. Make sure you get into the show notes or in the description if you're watching the YouTube channel version so that you can see where you can follow us and also follow the podcast. We also would not mind if you went ahead and shared the show with some of your friends, maybe recommend it to some people. We would love to get some more people listening to our podcast and build a little community where we are all technically together. See you in our next episode.